Okay, before we begin, have you practiced building chords on various root notes? If the answer is no, stop the video, go to Studio One, open up any instrument you want, and just start playing some chords. Pick notes and build chords on them because it's very important you know how to do that when we start getting into writing chord progressions, which is what we're going to do now. So if you have built some chords, you know how to do it, let's talk about chord progressions. Progression means a sequence. It means chords strung after one another. And chord progressions make up most of modern music in terms of the harmonies or the chords. The emotional feel of the song comes from the chord progression. And a chord progression is usually 2, 4, 8 chords that loop on themselves. So they come in some order and then they come back to the first chord and they loop like this. And different parts of songs might have different chord progressions to give that part of the song a different feel. Now, the easiest way to write chord progressions is to write from a scale. To know a scale and then use the chords that come from that scale. Now, if you feel clear about scales, we can move forward. And when we're writing chord progressions, we're going to write them using the diatonic chords of the scale. So what does that mean? Diatonic. Diatonic means the notes of the scale, no notes from outside the scale. So here's C major. So these are the diatonic notes, the white keys. The non-diatonic notes are the black keys. So to write a diatonic anything, let's say a diatonic melody, you just don't play any black keys. You only play the notes from the scale. That's what diatonic means, just the notes from the scale itself. So a diatonic chord could be this, or this, or this, but this is a non-diatonic chord because it has this F sharp in it, which is a black key, which is not part of the C major scale. Now, some scales have black keys in them, and then, in that case, those notes would be diatonic because they're part of the scale itself. However, C major, which we're using, has no black keys, and so the black keys are non-diatonic. So when I say the diatonic chords, I mean chords that only use white keys in this case. Chords that come from the scale we're using, which is C major. Chords, melodies, bass lines, everything, if you write it diatonic, will sound good together because they all come from the same scale. So when I'm writing the song, I'm going to take chords that are diatonic, meaning chords that only use the notes from C major. My bass line is going to use notes from C major. My melody is going to use notes from C major. And it's all going to mesh together because all those notes in C major relate to the note C. C is the home note and it makes sense of all the other notes in the scale. So when you write all your parts of your song using the notes of a scale, those things are going to work well together. If you recall the Lydian loop packs, they have a key associated with them. As in like Lydian Loops Volume 2, all the loops are in C major. That's so that everything works well together. So the first one was in E minor. That's a different scale, and all the things are diatonic to that scale. They only use the notes of E minor. So you can understand now why that is and why using loops that come from different scales aren't going to work with the C major scale or whatever, because they're going to use non-diatonic notes. Now, it is possible to use non-diatonic chords, melodies, and bass lines to use notes from outside the scale and make some really cool stuff. That's definitely possible and is done all the time. However, it's not the easiest way to go. We want to start with the easiest way and build our way into maybe using some of those non-diatonic notes. So for now, our chord progression is going to be purely diatonic. Now, there are 7 notes in the major scale. So in C major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it repeats up to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we can use each of these notes as a root note to build a chord off of. And these will give us the diatonic chords of the scale, the chords that come right from the scale. So if I take the first note of the scale, which is C, and the scale is C major, I'm going to build a major chord. Remember, that's plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 3, 1, 2, 3. There's my C major. Now, this is the first chord of the scale, the chord that's built on the first note of the scale. Now, if I take all the notes in this chord and just move them up to the next possible note, so this one goes here, this one goes here, and this one goes here, now I get the second chord in the scale. As you can see, it says D minor. Now, if we look at this and analyze it, By analyze it, I mean I'm going to look at my root note and I'm going to count how many half steps there are to the next note. That's 1, 2, 3. And the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a +3 +4. So that makes sense. It says D minor, right? The first one was C major. That's a +4 +3. But when I move everything up by 1, it ends up being a minor chord. Now if I keep doing this, I move everything up by 1 again, I get a minor chord. I go again, a major chord, and I can confirm that by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. +4 +3, that makes sense. It's a major chord. F major. If I move all the notes up again, G major, all the notes up again, A minor, and all the notes up again, B diminished. Now B dim it says there. Let's count this. This is root note plus 1, 2, 3. Well, that looks like it's going to be a minor chord. Plus 1, 2, 3. Well, that's a different formula than we've seen before. That's a root +3 +3. So this is a new kind of chord. And as you can tell, it sounds kind of weird. And we're going to not worry about it right now. We are going to come back to this chord to understand it later. But for now, we're going to forget about it when we're writing our chord progressions. So we took this first major chord and we just moved it up. Sorry. And we have 6 usable chords and then the diminished chord, and then it would repeat. So these 6 chords, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and A minor, are the 6 diatonic chords of the key that we're going to use to write our chord progressions. If we make combinations of these chords, for instance, if I can start on F, then go to D, then go to E, then go to C, that's a chord progression. How about I go D to C, D to G. That's a different chord progression. All I'm doing is making different orderings out of these chords. And these chords are just built of the scale. They're diatonic. There's no black notes in any of these chords. And so they can be put in various orders and you get different chord progressions out of them. This is how chord progressions are created. A scale, you take the scale and you get the diatonic chords from it, which are the ones we just looked at, and then these chords get put in different orders, and that creates different feelings and sounds and different emotions. So the writing of chord progressions is just this, is just reordering chords. And the easiest way to do it is taking the chords that are diatonic to a scale, like these ones, and putting them in certain orders. Now, we're going to give another kind of formula here for the chords in a scale, and this goes like this. Ma, mi, ma, mi, dim. So that's ma means major, and mi is minor, and dim is diminished. This pattern, ma, mi, ma, mi, dim, is the same for every major scale. It doesn't matter if we play G major, F sharp major, E flat major, any major scale we're playing in, this is going to be the order of chords that appear in that scale. So I'll explain a little further. Ma, mi, that was the first 3. That means that the first chord of any major scale is going to be a major chord, ma. The second chord is always going to be minor, mi. So if I'm in the key of G and I go to the second chord, which is A, it's going to be a minor chord. And the third chord is mi as well, ma, mi. The fourth chord is major, fifth chord is major, sixth is minor, and the seventh is diminished. This pattern, ma, mi, ma, mi, dim, can be memorized because it's universal. It applies to every major scale no matter where you play it, and it will always give you the correct diatonic chords in the key. So it's easier to just remember that pattern, ma, mi, ma, mi, dim, than it is to try and go and work out all the chords by hand every time. You just take whatever scale you're playing in, and we're going to learn how to play in different scales in the future, and you just apply this pattern, ma, mi, ma, mi, dim, and you'll have all the chords that come from that scale. So you can memorize certain things, like I said, such as that the one chord is always major, the chord that comes on the fourth note is always major, and the chord that comes on the fifth note is always major. So these are universal. That's always going to be the case no matter what major scale you're playing in. ma, mi, ma, mi, dim. That's the pattern. And if you memorize that, it will make your life a lot easier because you can just create chord progressions in any key, in any scale, because you understand what chord qualities come from that scale. Ma, mi, ma, mi, dim. Now when we get to the task, you're going to be using these 6 chords, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, to create chord progressions by just putting them in different orders and seeing what that sounds like. So once again, I could take, say, C major first, then go to F, then go to E, back to F, and then start again. Or how about A, G, F, G. That's a really popular chord progression. I'm just taking the chords that came from the scale and just putting them in a different order, and I get a new chord progression. That's all there is to it. And then you just use your ear to determine if you like that chord progression or not. If that chord progression feels the way you want it to feel. If it doesn't, try a different one. Try changing one of the chords out and all that stuff. So it's good to start practicing making progressions of chords. Of course, you can do this on your Chordie keyboard, as I mentioned before. You can also do it in the piano roll just by drawing in the chords. You don't need to have the physical piano in front of you, though it does make it easier. So in the next video, we're going to look at the task, which is creating chord progressions in C major using these diatonic chords. If this video has been confusing, because I know it's a lot of information, I recommend watching this video again and then going on to the task, because it is a new concept, how these chords come from the scale and the new term diatonic and all that. But if you feel comfortable with it, then we can move on to the next one.